We're on. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Between Two Teachers, where we discuss issues of education at different levels and issues that affect our children, and staying current on the latest events. So my name is Consuelo Lara.
I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and we're coming to you today, as always, from the ancestral land of the Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone Native peoples, whom we always call out with respect. We're going to talk a little bit about things that are going on nationally in education right now. And of course, the big conversation is about reopening schools. But in addition to that, there is also a conversation around essentially it is around ethnic studies, but a very precise conversation around something called the 1619 Project, which was a New York Times project which reframed the perspective that we teach American history from the European perspective, which we have always used, the perspective that our textbooks have come from, talking about Columbus discovering America, right? That's a very Eurocentric perspective. And moving it instead to an Afrocentric perspective of when slavery began in America, 1619. That perspective, that whole project has now been adopted in a number of cities throughout the country. I mean, two of them are Buffalo has adopted it as its history curriculum, and Newark has, and a number of other cities are looking into it as well. And I think it's really an important thing actually for California to look at. I think Mr. Thurmond should look at it, but even at a lower level and local levels, it certainly is something that all of our districts could look at, really seriously look at, because here it exists. And if Buffalo and Newark can switch out of a Eurocentric perspective, why can't West Contra Costa? Well, so there's that. But there's also Mr. Cotton, and he'll tell you why West Contra Costa can't, because he wants to make it illegal. Mr. Cotton is a senator from Arkansas, and he's running unopposed this year. So unopposed, he can say whatever he wants to say and do whatever bill he wants. And he has apparently said that he feels that the 1619 Project is divisive. Incredible as that is. So the 1619 Project has, I'm in our Trello boards, I've put some links that have said there are historians who there's some debatable points in it, which there always are with historians, because you're coming from original papers and sometimes drawing conclusions about things, but the overall perspective it cannot be debated. But it is apparently being debated by Mr. Cotton. So he has introduced a bill to make it impossible to use the 1619 Project as your curriculum.
That's terrible. Let me make a comment about that. You know, back when I was in college, I remember we read about colonization, how that works. Mm-hmm. The colonizers come to colonize a people. One of the first things they do, whether they kidnap them and take them away or take their land, is to take away the history. Take away their history, take away their culture, take away their language. Don't allow them to have that because it's empowering. If they know their history, if they know and have been able to keep that culture, that empowers them. And so that's where he is coming from. We do not want to empower these African American students by giving them a connection to their to their culture or to their perspective on history.
Right.
It's not the history of the winners, a history of the people who were colonized. And so this goes way back. It's a strategy of the colonizers to reject that and to make those things illegal. That's why we have so many anti-ethnic studies people out there.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is the same, it's the same exact thing. So it really needs to be called out. And I think that, and I really do think it would be a wonderful thing if California as a whole adopted the 1619 project as its core curriculum. I mean, I really think it's something that should be looked at. And so, and if it has to be district by district or classroom by classroom, then that's how you start. I included in here the a conversation that Trevor Noah did, and I'm sure there are many other conversations and discussions of Mr. Cotton, Senator Cotton's proposal, but I think it should not go without coverage and without people realizing it. This is a huge pushback. The 1619 project is the kind of thing that when you talk about Black Lives Matter, it is right in the center of it, and it is teaching our children and all of us to understand literally how we got here, how it is that we got here. And to deny it is it's not surprising, but it needs to be responded to. So I wanted to call out Senator Cotton. And so if you want to learn more about Senator Cotton and about the 1619 project, you can just go on our Trello and the links are there, or you can just go on Google and find the links because there are plenty of them. As far as California, California hasn't made any big decisions right now, although Mr. Thurmond is working on it because California doesn't have that many places where you can go back. But West Contra Costa has. So you can talk about West Contra Costa. We did have some decisions there. Right, we have our distance learning project.
Yes, we had that, and then we also had some appointments, and we can congratulate Mr. McGee. He's going to be the Director of African American Achievement. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yeah, I was remembering that I think I did summer school at Richmond High, and I just heard about how he organized the African American students there. They had all these projects going on. I mean, they were out there.
He created the Black Student Union.
Yes, and they were active. I mean, he's a real motivator, and he's got all this energy. I think he's going to be wonderful over there doing that. And then we had Mr. Aurelio, who's going to be our chief academic officer.
Yes, yes.
And Chin now into operations. So we approved all of those. Great individuals on our staff. We're so lucky to have them. So those things got done as well.
Yeah, and I personally need to give a big shout out to Mr. McGee because I've known Mr. McGee. I taught with Mr. McGee in Hayward. We actually co-taught something. We did a couple of projects at Hayward Adult School. He was in the classroom next to me. Oh, wow. And so I've known Mr. McGee a long time, and I'm thrilled for him that he has this new appointment, and I know he will be very successful at it. So let's talk about, so you had a very interesting board meeting the other night. You made decisions around not going forward with the parcel tax, right?
Yes, not putting it on the ballot. So that was decided, and all of the speakers did not want it, and apparently all of the emails, but
Ms. Reckler was for it.
Yes, Ms. Reckler and I.
Yes, you were the two voices.
Yeah, I just believe in giving people choice and the opportunity to make that decision. So that was done, and then for me the biggest problem I have is the length of the meetings going on, sometimes 12:30, and it just broke my heart. We had our last it was the last meeting for DeWitt, trustee DeWitt Vasquez.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke about how these meetings go so long that there are times at the end of the meeting when he wanted to speak and share something, but he was never able to because the meetings just kept going on and on and on. And it just was heartbreaking to me because he is such a great student leader. And I know he's out there with his rallies and everything, but he needed to speak at this platform. This was his voice that needed to be heard. And it just is heartbreaking. And so I'm going to see, we need to bring him back. He could definitely come and talk about the grades. He did that whole workshop
He
on
did making the grade, right?
to just come back and be a speaker and speak at that platform on the issues that he finds important. It's so eloquent, and he always has something we didn't think of, you know, something profound, something from his perspective, and we need his voice. And so I'm going to make sure he comes back and is able to speak his voice, and I'm not going to be at 12 o'clock at night. So
I think one of the things around that is that if a student board member needs to leave a board meeting, and you know that, and this has been true historically, if you know that they're going to leave at 10 o'clock or 9:30 or whatever the time is, really, truly, the best practice should be to say, and when you're, even if you're in the middle of doing something else, you stop, you respect the student and say, and I'm going to make time now for you to say any closing comments that you would like to make.
before you leave.
And if they don't have to, they can decline, but that should be given priority, right? Otherwise, it's
What time they're going to be picked up or have to leave.
right. Now on Zoom, that's not as the same issue, but you still have to go to bed. I mean, you still have.
They have to do the next day, and they can't be on the all night. So they still do know that time, and we could make sure, because we're going to have another, maybe hopefully two
Two.
student leaders. So we got to make that right, because it was just sad that had to happen to him. So we're going to not do that again. And what else happened?
Well, you got the report on distance learning. I have a link in here also to something from Good Morning America, something about reopening schools that just simply talks about what it will look like if once students do return. We know in the beginning they're not going to, but then some of them will be going to the hub, which is sort of not clearly defined yet as to who is going to be going to this hub and who's not. But for those children, they would be, what kind of protective equipment will they be wearing? Will they be masked? Will they have face shields? What will be the requirements around that? And that's something people are talking about across the United States, because it's certainly internationally, as a matter of fact. So it's not that it's not a national issue. So it's something everybody needs to think about.
We did get several thank yous in public comment about the fact that we're going online 100%.
Right.
The public understands the importance of that. So it causes other issues to come up, of course, like childcare or like learning loss.
Mm-hmm.
So our childcare issue, our communities, our electeds, they need to step up and get us funding for childcare for our families, for our essential workers. I mean, this is a big issue for our families. We need to have childcare because we can't, students are not going to come back. And that could be a thing where the hubs could be done where the hubs are.
Well, that's what they're doing in San Francisco, because San Francisco has a children's budget. So the city and county of San Francisco have access to additional funds. And the way we don't have a national child care strategy in this country, right? We simply do not have that. Other countries have that, but we don't. So what you have are very localized strategies for child care. And honestly, the only reason you don't have a statewide strategy is because nobody has had the political will to put one before the voters.
Yeah.
Right. And truthfully, in the past, it probably wouldn't have passed. But the time has moved. Things have changed. Right. We're in a new era. Now we're in a post-pandemic era where people have had a whole different set of experiences. So hopefully that will happen, that there will be political will to put this before voters statewide. But certainly it has been put before voters citywide in San Francisco. The voters in the city of Richmond did passed a budget for children, and I don't know to what degree that's going to be accessible, but it's all about money.
I know. It's essential. But it's an essential issue for us. And the other thing about learning loss, I taught at a year-round school. Actually, in fact, my first 4 years, we were at a year-round school. And we did 45-15. So you were 45 days of teaching, which is like 9 weeks, and then 15 days, 3 weeks off. So talk about learning loss. So those 3 weeks, they might have, they had little intercession, they might have little mini camps. They had all kinds of things going on the kids could join it. But when they came back after the 3 weeks, there was no learning loss like you have over the summers.
Because it was never more than 3 weeks, right? They were never gone more than 3 weeks.
Never more than 3 weeks. And we opened the book and they knew what page we were on. They picked up, got in their little circles, and everybody, so to me, in terms of learning loss, to address that for next school year, we need to have year-round calendar. I think that's the only thing that's going to address this, because this is a big critical issue. Suppose they miss a whole year of their academics, and yes, distance learning is going to help quite a bit, but there still will be some loss. And I just feel like a year-round calendar, one of the ways we can address that.
I absolutely agree. I think that is, and so that and looping. I always go back to looping, right? Yeah. So if you had the year-round calendar and you were with the same teacher, that really creates the connection. Yeah. The connection, right? It deepens the connections. And so those issues around the social emotional part, and a teacher who knows your learning style, and a community of students who you're comfortable with, and who also know your learning style, that all of that it can help. All of that can help, and that's doable. Those are just strategies that don't cost extra money necessarily. They're strategies of looking at pedagogical choices and logistical choices. And I think because people have been forced to make choices, they didn't have any choices. They've been forced into this completely new educational setting because of the pandemic. There are lots of folks who've moved out of being stuck in the status quo. And that if there was ever an opportunity to make these kinds of changes, it's now. It's definitely now. So, we just have to put them forward to negotiate to the groups that have the responsibility for making the changes.
Yep. Boy, this is quite a time in history, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Education is not going to be the same. Not going to be.
No, nothing's going to be the same. There's so many things that are, where the kinds of jobs you're going to train for. I mean, honestly, I was thinking just, as you look at even the CTE academies, and they're looking at the jobs that were able to survive the pandemic and even grow, and then the jobs that are eliminated, all of those, and the strategies around how do you get yourself, how do you pandemic proof yourself, right? I used to teach my students how to outsource proof themselves. And I taught whole lessons on that in Hayward to my students. And if I was teaching now, I would be teaching how to pandemic proof yourself. So what are the strategies? We hadn't expected this. So what are the strategies?
So the state that handles pathways, they're going to have to review that and change all that. It's not relevant now. A lot of it isn't.
They have to come in and say, so now here's how we have to rethink it.
Right? We're going to have to redo all of that.
Right, and businesses are doing this, and that's why it's so critical that you have a deep connection with the business community to see what it is that they're doing.
Yes,
right? So that you don't have to make it up. It's that what you're doing is preparing people to join up with them, and so what you need to know is what you're thinking on that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so I was teaching in the legal world. So right now, the law firms are all home. Everybody, got sent home. They got sent home with equipment. They're all, how they're operating online and how they're filing documents and how they're handling their relationships with their clients. all of that it was always partly online. Now it's 100% online.
And think about the law pathway and about what's happening with Black Lives Matter and racial, think about those injustices. And so the part that these law enforcement or law academies and pathways can play. And so that has to be taken into consideration.
There are all many different angles to this. I mean, there are law academies, and there's a whole section of the legal community where the jobs are all regarding immigration.
Yes. Yes.
There are many people there. There's all of the folks who are involved in family law, and how visitation is changing, how all sorts of things in every family have changed because of this, and the inequities around access to technology.
Yes, the health pathways, big time, big thing.
So it's across the board. It's across the board, right? And yeah.
Change it.
So I wanted to just talk a little bit about something, take action. They still haven't passed the HEROES Act in Congress. So I've got a connection to NEA has a take action. The HEROES Act will give money to teachers and first responders and help our cities become at least get some funding. And it's a political hot potato that still hasn't been decided. So if you're in terms of doing advocacy, that's something that we can advocate for. You can also advocate for the 1619 project. That's another thing.
Good point.
The other thing I have on here is with respect to privatization is now we know that this is also pandemic related. The PPE money that went out, the folks in the public interest, which are it's an organization that tracks what's going on in the privatizing world, they have tracked the amount of money that came from those PPE grants that were supposed to go to small businesses. And in California, 420 schools applied, charter schools, because districts, of course, could not apply. 420 charter schools applied, and they've received as much as $565.6 million.
Wow.
Right? So that's over $500 million. And that money is given to those businesses as opposed to shared out with the districts that those businesses are in and from whom they take the rest of their funding.
So 1 minute they're a public school, another minute they're a business. Wow, they really know how to work the system. So they're going to share it with us, right? They're going to share that with the
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? They came up with the idea that we needed to share the parcel tax, but I haven't seen them come up with the idea that they need to share this money. I've seen that.
So, maybe we could sue for that. Who knows?
I don't know. But it's but it certainly has happened. I just wanted to throw it out there. It's right, and that nobody's saying they're interested in sharing.
No, they're not sharesies, are they? They're not sharesies.
No. Now you wanted to mention something. I mean, when we're talking about privatizing, or around the elections are beginning.
Yes, and yeah, as we go forward, I'm really interested in campaign financing. Who's funding who? We'll get more information about that, of course. And who's training who. There's a lot of training out there. I've gone to some candidate training, CTA or Democratic Party has some. I know Emerge has training. And Go Public, the charter school tool, has training as well. They train candidates to run for school board. So as we go forward, I think all of that's public record. That's all we're going to do is share all of this information as we get it, because I think it's important who you vote for, who trained them, who's influencing them, who's paying for their campaign. That's just things that I want us to explore and make sure everyone has the right information about that. So yeah. That's
and we don't have the candidates, the deadline for filing has not passed yet. So anybody If you're watching this today or tomorrow or any time before next week, you could file to decide, and for any office in Contra Costa County where we are, and wherever it is you may be, you can check in and you can file for office. So those, yes, the opportunities are there for everybody.
Participate in the process. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's wonderful.
Exactly. And then when you do file, what happens is because of the transparency laws, your the documents you're funding, the documents that there are documents that have to be filed that say where you're getting your money. That's basically it. And people can then follow the money. That's the whole follow the money path. So just know that that's out there, and there's money that comes. The presumption is that money may come with strings attached, and that's what people look at.
Yeah, yeah. It tells you a lot about the values of the person that's running for office, and that's
Right.
what you need to know what their values are for sure.
Right.
Okay, well that's all I got today.
Good. I think we're down to Carlos.
How about you? Want to share the?
Let's see if I've got it. Let me pull it up. Comedy from Carlos, our friend Carlos. Let's see. Here it is. Okay, he sent us 2 jokes. So I'm going to do the first one, and you're going to get so excited you're going to be, waiting for next week's when we do the second. So here's the first joke. Why did the math book look so sad?
Why did the math book look so sad?
Because it had so many problems.
Oh, that's good. That's really
I'm
good.
putting on my mask and going out into the world.
Yes, put your mask on. There you go. All right. Bye, everybody.